where we get into the systematic issues. Most of the times when you're dealing with drugs or you're dealing with these things that you buy from, the gas station, these different things, you're dealing with symptomatic situations, but we want to deal with the systematic issues. All right. So you're fixing things temporarily when you do symptoms, but when we do systems, we fix them permanently. OK, so a lot of times if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know that you're doing something to cause a situation, you can't necessarily fix that situation. And so we want to cover the 9, there are probably a few more, 9 major reasons why people have erectile issues. We don't want to play with our virility. Remember, the very first thing, whether it's a choice of ours, whether we go through with it or not, but you still want the option. When we're born, our first job is to procreate. It's a choice of ours if we want to or not, but you still want the ability to be able to procreate. If you cannot achieve an erection and sustain that erection, that's going to be a problem for procreation. So no matter what, if you want to or not, we want you to be able to gain and maintain an erection. Okay, very important. So let's cover the 9 reasons you may be doing these things, or things may have happened to you and you don't understand that these things play a part. The first reason that most people suffer from erections is the hardening of the arteries. This is probably the most popular one, to be honest with you. Those blood vessels are pretty much just, either they're stuffed or they're damaged. So they usually break down over time due to toxicity, due to clogging or attrition, right? Constantly under fire, constantly under pressure because of lifestyle. That's what attrition is. You're always under attack, and your body's always fending off, or your arteries, blood vessels in this case, are fending off. So usually it's going to be, as you age, it's going to be diabetes and high blood pressure. Diabetes and high blood pressure is occurring more and more in men at a younger age because the lifestyle, the quality of life is becoming more poor and poor, principally because of food choices, principally because of sedentary lifestyles, which I'll cover a little bit more in another section. So the hardening of the arteries, you got to be mindful of this thing. I already talked about smoking, already talked about drinking. These are things that, and the poor foods, all these things cause the damaging of the arteries. Now, what I would say is vitamin C. Vitamin C helps to rebuild the arteries. It's very important. The elasticity of the arteries. We spoke about the endothelial cells. Vitamin C is going to play a part in the hardening of the arteries. When you have issues in anything, typically the solution is in the problem. If I'm smoking, then if I stop smoking, my situation will improve. If I'm drinking, if I stop drinking, my situation will improve. If I'm cheating and I stop cheating, my situation will improve. If I'm eating something and I know that I have diabetes, if I'm eating ice cream all the time and I stop eating it, my situation will improve. So typically the solution is in the problem. It's really simple. Life is simple. It may not be easy to do these things because of habits, right? Or because of chemicals or things that we're consuming as controlling behavior, because chemicals alter human behavior, which you're going to see right here with number 2, medications. Medications, especially for high blood pressure, antidepressants, etc. You're dealing with side effects. We don't want side effects. We want direct effects. When you live a certain way, when you have a certain lifestyle, you're going to have direct effects. So the chemicals in the medications, right, are what's controlling the behavior of the body and also damaging the body. So you have to be careful, especially with these antidepressants and this high blood pressure. I always explain to people, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and any other conditions, if you can eradicate them, give your best effort to eradicate, to fix these situations, because the body was not meant to just live under these dis-eases, under not being at ease over years, 10, 20, 30, and 40 years. You have to know that eventually the organ is going to give out. Yes, at some point throughout life, everybody transitions. We know that the heart stops working. We already know that. But we want to get to the point to where it's not so premature. Many people are transitioning prematurely, and just with lifestyle changes, they can help that. So medications, for me, you can fix your blood pressure. You can fix your type 2 diabetes. You can fix your obesity. You can fix your smoking habits. You can fix your drinking habits. And then you won't have to worry about the medications. It's very important. Number 3, injuries to the pelvic area. For me, this is probably the most unrecognized cause of erectile dysfunction. We're never thinking about the pelvic. When you think about pelvic or pelvic floor, you usually think about women, and the pelvic floor is compromised, giving birth or something like that. So usually men are not talked about, or it's not even thought about when you're dealing with the erections. But the pelvic floor deals with the strength of the erections. Why do you think they tell men to do Kegels? When you're urinating, you hold, and then when you stop, you urinate again, you hold. What this is doing is strengthening that erection. But not all men should be doing Kegels. It's not like, oh, I have a problem with my pelvic floor, let me do Kegels, because that could worsen the problem. You may have a pelvic floor that's hyper, it's firing, it's excessively firing, right? So that means it's going to be constantly tense. And what you may need to do is to stretch, like I think I mentioned before, with piriformis stretching. There's different stretches to loosen the glutes, to loosen the fascia. This is important. You want to do your research on this. I like the Indian style sitting. I like there's a lot of different things that you can do for that. But the pelvic floor area, you want to go to a pelvic floor specialist. Sometimes they're going to give you the typical basic stuff from a playbook, but there's a lot of things that will help you if you're suffering. And anyway, it doesn't hurt you to even do these stretches, because it's a lot of stretching. It's a lot of stretching, because you may have damaged the perineum, you may have damaged the pelvis or the pelvic floor. This is a lot of the stability. This area right here is a lot. It's very important for you. So don't count injuries to the pelvic area. Very important. Some people, if you're very active in sports, you could have suffered a pelvic injury. If you ride bikes a lot, if you do a lot of this stuff, this is problematic. And this is mechanical. This is the part that, so you have the biological, right? The things that we're listing: hardening of arteries, spinal cord injuries, hormone imbalances. That's biological. But this is mechanical. This has to do not with your eating. This is not about your hormones. This has to do with a part of the body that's not functioning how it's supposed to function, or it's under extreme duress or stress, and it's not working that way. And maybe it's cutting off the supply to help you get the erection. So this is why this has to be fixed. Number 4, hormonal imbalances. Remember, hormones are chemical messengers, right? And so they're needed for growth, reproduction, and well-being. The top hormone that we would think about is testosterone. That's the one that we most think about. But for men, we have what's called androgens, okay? And they're male hormones that give men their characteristics. Virilization, right? What makes you a man. That's important. So when I mention virile, I want you to be virile. I want you to have the vitality. That's a lot of things what the so-called society, especially Western society, they're trying to take away from men a lot. They're trying to take that masculinity away, and they're trying to weaponize it against you. And so my thing is, you never let anybody take your manhood away from you. And one of the ways that they're taking the manhood is the food that they're giving us, the way that they're treating men, they're taking that away from you. And so when they take your erections away, and then they take you can't speak out against injustices, you can't speak out for what's right, that's a problem. Okay, so these are what the androgens are doing. Testosterone, so let me name some of the top androgens. Testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, HEA, what is it? Androstenedione. Androstenedione. Yeah, I had it right. Androstenedione. I can't pronounce all these words, man. This stuff is, my main thing is we focus on balancing the hormones. And you do that through diet. You do that through rest, going to bed at a certain hour. Remember, we want to be in bed preferably between the hours of 10 p.m. to 8. You want to be in a good deep sleep. It's important. If you work graveyard shift, well, now you're up exposed to unnatural light at certain hours. That's going to throw your body off. It's problematic. We all lead different lives. And let me say this. This is important. I slept up under the air condition. Let me say this. This is important, which is unnatural, by the way, which is unnatural. I prefer a fan. But we all lead different lives. But guess what? Nature is not concerned about your job occupation. Nature didn't tell you to take this job or to take that job. We all have choices, and we all have to live with our choices. So if you're working a graveyard shift, or the nighttime, the food has to be on point. I mentioned that before, okay? Next, spinal cord injuries. The spinal cord sends motor commands from the brain to the body. So remember, the brain is what gives the erection. The most powerful aphrodisiac is the brain, because somebody can get an erection, and just from looking at a woman, a man can get an erection. A woman can get moist and soaking wet just from thinking about or looking at a man. Not that he's even touching her, right? Very important. It also sends sensory information from the body to the brain, and it coordinates reflexes. So if your spinal cord is injured, you're gonna have a problem. It's really simple. Many people, you may get into car accidents, you may be an athlete and you may get injured there. There's different ways that this stuff happens. You may have a fall. And so you want to get this stuff checked out. Also, you can see a chiropractor as well, but preferably you want to make sure that you're properly diagnosed. You don't know what could be going on. Number 6, cardiovascular disease. The number 1 disease in Western civilization. Western civilization marked by let's say the slave trade, right? The transatlantic slave trade. Cardiovascular disease takes up pretty much most of the money in healthcare, because so much that we do, the way that we do our lifestyles is and our relationships, because the heart holds a lot of grief. The heart holds sadness. So many people are sad. They're sad and they're sad individuals, but because of the life that they've chose and the decisions that they make from day to day. So the cardiovascular disease is very important, whether it's AFib, congestive heart failure. I look at high blood pressure as it's like the first step to heart disease, because with high blood pressure, you can damage arteries. Now you had a heart attack. Now that particular channel to your heart may be shut off or cut down. So now you need the stents. So all of these things, this stuff just grows and grows and grows. Number 8, diabetes, blood sugar problems. Blood sugar problems, blood disorders, blood sugar problems, metabolic disease, right? Dealing with metabolism is problematic. And you're looking at dehydration, you're looking at the damaging sugar. When you have sugar problems, when the sugar cannot get moved out of the blood and pushed into the cells, and you got high blood sugar, that is an issue, right? Because the sugar is not being processed correctly, so the body cannot use it correctly. You may have an overabundance of sugar in the blood for many different reasons. Usually what's not identified as intramyocellular fat as one of the causes. And so the sugar can't get into the cell because you got intramyocellular fat in the cell from the donuts and the cookies and the catfish. And then you got the arteries damaged from the smoking, from all that food. Then you have drinking. Then you got stress, which shuts the body down. So you got a lot of reasons why, and then they try to blame it on fruits, like fruit is the cause. Fruit is not causing that. Fruit is not going to cause you intramyocellular fat like that. That doesn't work that way. Number 8, neurological disorders like Bell palsy, MS, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, brain tumors. These are all reasons that could contribute to erectile dysfunction. The nerves in the brain are underestimated in importance. Well, I don't think people underestimate the brain, but the health of the brain, making sure the brain is getting the healthy fats, making sure the brain is getting cholesterol, which lack of cholesterol contributes to Alzheimer's and dementia. Getting you enough good cinnamon. Cinnamon is good. Blueberries are good. Ashwagandha is good for the brain. Good fats. If you eat eggs, doing eggs, getting some good cholesterol. Avocado, good for the brain. The brain is important. If you're doing different, the sea mosses, the reishi, the mushrooms, these are all good for brain health. Very important. Last but not least, the psychological reasons. Stress, anxiety, performance, relationship problems. All of these things can affect the body. And here's how it works too. Whenever the body is under psychological stress, the organ or the organ parts that's the weakest are going to suffer, because when you're in a fight, let's say there's 5 people in front of you. If somebody is the smallest, you may grab that person that is closest and wipe them out quick. And this is how it works with stress in the body. It may go to the weakest part. And the erectile, maybe you've got a big gut, maybe the colon is off. There's a lot of different things that's off. And the body said, well, you know what? I'm not really, when you have a condition, when you're sick, when you got stress, first of all, we know that the immune system is already shutting down. When you got stress, the body, or when you have an illness, the body does not prioritize erections. The body is not saying, if the liver has a problem, if you got blood sugar problems, if you have asthma, the body is not sending resources for you to procreate at this time. So this is why you wouldn't get an erection. If you're worried about something, you're worried about paying the bills, the body is not going to prioritize getting an erection, because the body is focusing on you and your survival. And you saying, I need this money for the rent. I need this money for the rent. So that's where the focus is going. So the resources are on that. All of the power is going to that. If the heart has a problem, the body is not saying, get this guy an erection so that he can make another kid. The body is saying, save the heart. Let's do what we can to save the heart. So all of these things are contributions to erectile dysfunction. Peace.